guys, so I'm here to film the introduction to a video, and that is, as you can tell from the title, reading the best books of the year, as recommended by other booktubers. Like all of you, I'm sure, I have been avidly watching the best books of the year videos popping up in my subscription box. I love these videos, and I always end up adding so many books to my wish list and my TBR from people's recommendations. But equally, I noted that quite a few of the videos I was watching mentioned videos I owned that were on my shelf or were on my Kindle or Audible app, and that I'd been meaning to read anyway but just hadn't gotten around to. And it really gave me that push to feel like I should read these books. There's a reason people are mentioning them in the best books of the year videos that they've been filming, and if they feel so passionately about them, I may too, and who wouldn't want that? So I decided to arbitrarily basically make a list of 3 books that were recommended in people's best books of the year videos that I already had access to. Of course, I love an excuse to buy a new book, but what I love about these kind of like come along with me reading vlog videos that I've been trying out recently is that it gets me to read books that I do already own that I maybe just like haven't had the push to pick up. So other than that, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to these 3 books. I initially wanted to go for books that I heard at least 2 different booktubers talk about, and that is true for 2 of these, but then I struggled to find another book that was recommended by 2 different booktubers, because I also wanted to like mention some people who I really enjoyed the videos of and have gotten recommendations from. So I'm just going to tell you what books I've decided to go for. The first of those is The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. This is a non-fiction book that I have the audiobook for. I picked it up ages ago because I've heard a lot of high praise for it. I know my friend Jill loves this book. I've talked about it with other friends and seen it in a lot of bookshops and seen people talking about it online. And I noticed that both of the Laurens mentioned this in their best books of the year videos, by which of course I mean Lauren Wade Reads and Lauren and the Books, who are 2 friends of mine and also 2 booktubers I completely trust and adore. So thought, this is it. This is the time you need to start listening to an audiobook because the praise is so high. As the subtitle suggests, this is a non-fiction book about the 5 women that Jack the Ripper killed, but it's not about Jack the Ripper. It's about what we know and can piece together about the lives of these 5 women before they were killed and up until they were killed. You know, they didn't have long-standing relationships, I believe, with this like anonymous serial killer. You know, they had their own stories and they're often ignored in place of this kind of like salacious story about a murderer, and they are forgotten about. So I think that is so interesting. The concept sounds phenomenal and it sounds as if it's been executed incredibly well at that. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to listen to it. We then have something completely different, and that is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This is a contemporary romance novel which I saw on both Amanda from The Naughty Librarian and Chelsea from Chelsea Darling Reads Best Books of the Year videos. But not only that, it was actually gifted to me by my friend Kathy, whose channel I've also linked down below, in 2019. So that gave me that extra push to feel like, look, people are raving about this book, they're putting in their best books of the year video, and a friend also gave it to me and I've been meaning to read it, so I thought I would prioritise that one. As I mentioned, this is a contemporary romance which I haven't read a lot of, but as I've mentioned quite a few times recently, I have been dipping my toes into kind of seeing what I enjoy in that genre. I generally feel like there is a book in every genre that I'm going to like, so it's been fun trying out this subset of late. And from what I understand, it is a fake dating narrative. So we follow Georgie, who is a clown. She performs at children's birthday parties, and her brother's best friend, who is an ex like baseball star who's injured himself and moved back to their hometown. Neither of them are taken seriously in the way they want to be, so they end up fake dating in hopes that that will change their image to those around them for whatever reason. Obviously I haven't read the book, so I don't understand the context, but I hear great things about it, and Tessa Bailey's an author I just hear talked about a lot in the romance booktube community, so it's about time I read something by her. And then I am a little bit undecided about book 3. I think the 2 options I am toying between is The Missing of Claire de Lune, which is book 2 in the Mirror Visitors series by Crystal Dabos, a fantasy YA series that's been translated from French, and I've actually read book 1 in. I saw book 2 mentioned in Reagan from Prue's Project video, and it just kind of like gave me that push to check it out. I really enjoyed book 1, but haven't gotten around to book 2 yet, as you can obviously tell from this discussion. But seeing it in somebody's best books of the year video made me feel like, wow, this book could be as good, if not even better than book 1, and that got me really excited. I think in a lot of ways this series is quite unique from a lot of the other YA fantasy that is trendy at the moment. Not that that's a criticism, I like a lot of the YA fantasy that's been published, but it's really nice to see something a little bit different at the same time and read something a little bit different at the same time. The first book follows our protagonist who has no choice in an arranged marriage that ends up taking her to a whole other citadel in their fantasy world, and that has a completely different kind of culture and society to her own, so she's entirely out of place. She doesn't know this man she's been betrothed to, and it seems like there's secrets around every corner. And unlike a lot of arranged marriage novels, there is no real romance between the man and the woman. At least in book 1 there wasn't. There was really no indication that they were actually going to end up romantically involved with one another. In fact, we're not even sure if we can really trust him. I don't know what happens in book 2, but I thought that that was a little bit different from what you usually see. However, I am also toying with reading The Lost Queen by Signe Pike, which was in Huck from Badgers Reads Best Books of the Year video, and this is another fantasy novel. I think this one is adult fantasy as opposed to YA fantasy. Not that it really matters. And it's also set in ancient Scotland, which sounds brilliant. Huck compared this to Juliet Marillier, who is an author I know we both adore, and I think even said this is like the book closest to Juliet Marillier's writing style that she's ever read. If that doesn't sell me a book, I don't know what will. It is, like I mentioned, sort of ancient historical fantasy set in Scotland, and it's about the time in which kind of Christianity is moving in to Scotland, and our protagonist is like a princess who has faith in the old religion but has been betrothed to marry a Christian prince, maybe from Ireland. I'm not entirely sure, but I know there's romance, I know there is magic, and old religion versus new religion, all of which sound absolutely excellent, so I have been meaning to pick that up. But I did think, at least if I read one of those books, it means I've read a fantasy, a non-fiction and romance, which are all quite different genres, and I'll probably just see which of those two fantasy books I end up in the mood for as this video goes on. I hope you don't mind me not confirming in advance. Who knows, maybe I'll read all 4 in the time space it takes me to film this video, but I like to kind of keep it manageable with 3 books when I do these. But I'm pretty sure this introduction is long enough, so without further ado, I will catch up with you when I next have thoughts to share. So I just thought I'd update you on my reading for this video, which is something I always forget to do. But I have listened to some of the 5 on audiobook. I've listened to, I can't remember how the chapters are divided up because it's an audiobook, but I'm at least past the story of the first of Jack the Ripper's victims. So the first woman is the focus of the story. I can't remember her name, so it's probably a little bit appalling on my part. However, I do think the book is incredible. Like, this book is so interesting. I knew it wasn't about Jack the Ripper. I knew it was a book about 5 women who just happened to have in common the fact that they were murdered by this anonymous man called Jack the Ripper. But even more so, I feel like this book is not about Jack the Ripper in the best possible way. It's sort of questioning that obsession that the press, the media, the public, everyone has around these individuals that do horrific things, as opposed to the people and their lives outside of the horrific things that happened to them and who they were. And it's such, I don't know, like, I have no objection to true crime, and I think some true crime's amazing. I definitely enjoy a bit of true crime too, but it does make you sort of ponder our fascination with things like serial killers and true crime. But the book itself is just fantastic, because what I've felt like I've garnered from this first woman's life is that it's really just a history book looking into what it was like for working class women living in the Victorian era in England, in London. And it's amazing because it looks at both their struggles as like as working class people, but as women as well, the multiple ways that they are essentially completely dependent on others for their survival. And it's so interesting, and it does that through like a look at individuals. But I already learned a lot about, like, I didn't know anything about, for example, the Peabody buildings, which was this like social housing built by like a rich donor during this period. I didn't know anything about that, and I just feel like I'm learning little interesting snippets of British and London history at the same time, which I'm really enjoying. I'm really glad that this book is kind of getting the hype it is getting. I think it kind of like, is doing something really interesting in the commercial history market. And I'm really intrigued to learn more about the other 4 women in their lives and what those entailed. So I think this book is just very much delivering on what I expected, but even more so. Like, this isn't a book about a serial killer. This is a book about women. This is a book about history. This is a book about London and Britain and working class life. This is a book about so many things and more. I expect that I will discover as it goes on, and I would recommend it to so many people. And I thought I'd also mention that I'm just about to start this. It's the evening. It's nearing bedtime, so I'm going to start myself a new book, and that is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey, and I'm really excited for this. I think it's just going to be like good escapist fun, and that's exactly what I'm in the market for right now. I've just been feeling a bit stressed, and I think we all struggle a little bit, lots of people struggle a little bit with January as it goes. It's a tough time, so I'm really looking forward to just cuddling up with this evening. Quick update, I'm 40 pages in, and this is the perfect, like, light-hearted fun that I wanted it to be, and I'm enjoying myself. It just makes you smile, you know? Guys, this book is so adorable. Like, I am so impressed. It's really making me question my assumptions about my interest in contemporary literature. I mean, I don't think I'm still ever going to be like queen of contemporary. It's not my favourite. But usually I steer towards historical fantasy books because I like the escapism, or just anything that feels a little bit out of the ordinary, away from the world around me. I like them when they deal with real issues. Love like political, social non-fiction that deals with very important contemporary issues, but I've just never been that into contemporary fiction. However, this is so cute. Like, this is so adorable and so quick. I read so much of it last night and have read a little bit more of it this evening, where I'm now 240 pages in and it's about 380 or so. So I think I'm going to finish it tonight. I can see myself reading a bit more of it this evening, having my dinner, doing some other stuff, tidying up a little bit, and then just like sitting down and reading all evening, and that's so nice. Like, I'm just like, this book is so lovely and so cute, and the 2 main characters, I love them both. Like, yeah, I think like male and female protagonists are really sweet and obviously so romantically interested in one another, despite the fact that what they're doing is a fake dating situation. They can both see how the other person sees them. They see each other in a way that other people in their lives don't see them, which is to truly see them, and it's so cute. I don't know how else to describe it. And it really makes me want to read more books like this. So let me know if you've got any recommendations, but I'm just gonna like continue away, plodding on and reading a little bit more, finishing it today probably, and letting you know my final thoughts. Finished. I feel like the fact that literally behind you right now is me adding the companion novel to this one to my wish list, Love Her or Lose Her, which is about 2 of the side characters in this book. I need more Tessa Bailey in my life. I totally understand why people love her. I think this is like the perfect, fun, endearing romance. Like, I'm not sure really what else I could have wanted from it. It is like the perfect example of what it is and what it's meant to be, if that makes sense. It was just like, I think that took me like 2 days or so to read. Such a quick read. Was so wrapped up in the story. Really liked both the protagonists, like both of the characters in the relationship. I thought were wonderful and complex and just so like sweet together. The one thing I will say more generally about romance is like, I do not get this fetishization of virginity at all. Like, I read a lot of historical romance, or like I have been reading a lot of historical romance, and I get it. It's the Regency era. Most of the women are virgins. And fair enough, in some contemporary romances, people are going to be virgins as well. But like, it does feel a little bit like that's like the case in most contemporary romances. Like, I've not read a lot, but in all the contemporary romances I've read, the protagonists, particularly the female protagonists, are usually virgins, and there's like a bit of like this, oh, it's kind of sexy, and it's just like, can we not just move on from that? Like, we don't need to like idealize or fetishize virginity. Not that this book really does that in a really intense way. It's only like ever so slightly. I just feel like I kind of like it feels like more part of like a wider thing than this being like a massive contributor to that trope, if that makes sense. So it's not really a criticism of the book. I still think this is such a fun read, and I can't wait to read more. It's so good. I was like, thank you, Kathy. This was such a good pick. And also, like, yeah, completely agree with Amanda and Chelsea for this being one of their favourite books of the year. It's brilliant. It's like, I don't know, I feel like if you are going to give contemporary romance a chance, if you've been thinking about it, I think this, for me, kind of fulfilled what I would have hoped for from contemporary romance. So it's worth checking out. Of course, it's also incredibly cheesy, but like in the most heartwarming way. Like, all those things are okay. Like, it's okay for it to be cheesy, and that's just part of its charm. Question: does anybody else go bright red around the eyes when they exercise? It's already faded a bit because I'm back home from the gym, but they go so red all around here. I don't know why. Like, that bit of me is the bit that goes red. Anyway, I'm back from the gym, and before I get in the shower and then get on with work, I thought I'd update you on some reading. I let you know my thoughts, didn't I? Didn't I? You know better than me. On Fix Her Up last night, but I am further into the 5. I've listened to the stories of 3 women out of the 5 now, and it's still really interesting. I mean, I think everything I said before still very much stands. It is like this incredible look into working class women's lives in the Victorian era. But what's also quite prevalent amongst all of the victims, interestingly enough, is alcoholism. And it's something I think the book explores in general about how prevalent it is kind of in London anyway. At the time, it's been interesting learning sort of like about like kind of the treatment of alcoholism and alcohol laws and vagrancy laws as well, because there's a lot of homelessness a bit in the book. But it's just like another one of those curses that just like the book sort of indicates how it's all tied together, how kind of like lack of control over one's life and unfortunate circumstances and etc leads people into these places, and it's so hard to get out. So it's quite a harrowing read in a way, but it's also super interesting, and I feel like I'm learning a lot about the Victorian era, which I didn't really know. Like my like British history is quite basic, I would say, so I just feel like this is painting a more vivid picture of that for me, and I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. I haven't started a fantasy book yet. I'm feeling really indecisive at the moment about what I want to read, but obviously I want to read something that was like somebody's best pick of the year, because that's what this video is. Although I was on such a, like, this isn't entirely to do with the topic of this video, but I was on such a romance high at the beginning of this year. I read a fantasy kind of romance. It was like not exclusively romance, but a fantasy book that had romance in it. Then I read 3 historical romances and then Fix Her Up, and they were all so quick, so fun. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, it's been like just over a week and I've read so much, because like these romances are so fast and fun. And I thought last night, oh, maybe I'll just read The Kiss Quotient, because I said I wanted to read that this year anyway. It's on Scribd, people talk about it really highly, and it's good. I've read a wee chunk of it, like 50 pages or something like that, but I actually think I've kind of killed my romance mood. Like, I think I need something really different now. I am such a binge reader, and then I just sort of like binge myself out. I'll want to go back to The Kiss Quotient, but I think I'm going to want a few books in between it. So it's whether I read one of those 2 fantasy books I mentioned earlier in the video, or potentially Lanny by Max Porter, because that was in both Lauren Wade and Jen Campbell's best books of the year. So that did make it into 2 people's best books of the year. And like, it's everywhere as well. I've been recommended it by so many like booksellers, and I do have a copy. However, I mean, I'm not about to go read just now anyway. I'm going to go work once I've had a shower, and then I've got plans this evening, so I'll probably just end up at lunchtime and stuff listening to the 5 and just focusing on that until I'm finished it, and then deciding what physical book I want to read. Usually I would read an audiobook and a physical book in tandem, but I think I'm just going to focus on the 5 until I really feel compelled by another book. So that's kind of my plan. Just thought I'd pop in and give you a, as predicted, update that I am reading Lanny by Max Porter. Like I said, I was really just needing something quite different, and I knew I loved Max Porter's other book, Grief is a Thing with Feathers, so I thought I should take this opportunity with everyone raving about it. It's one of the best books of the year to finally read it, and it's also not terribly long. It's just over 200 pages. I'm not far into it at the moment. I'm about 20 pages, but it is beautifully written, and I'm so intrigued. I do not know what to expect. It's very weird, but in a beautiful way, so I'm excited to see what's to come. So I've just had the longest day at university. I got in and I immediately got in my pyjamas and then remembered I still need to film an update and a final update for this video for you. I hope you guys don't mind that when I do these sort of come along and read with me videos that I always film the updates on my phone when I get a chance, no matter what's going on, and they're pretty low res. I mean, what I say is the same, but maybe less edited, so hopefully that style works for you. I think if I had to be more formal, set up, aesthetically, like sorted out, lighting wise and everything every time, it just would take 5 million years and I would never do them. But the books, that's what we're here to talk about. Obviously, I've pretty much summed up my feelings on Fix Her Up. I think we can safely say that I shared with you how I felt about that. It was just like great fun, like exactly what I wanted it to be. So thanks to Amanda and Chelsea for that one. The Five by Hallie Rubenhold, also brilliant in such a different way, but again, just an excellent example of what it was. I think, again, I've probably said all my feelings on that. I know I updated you only when I was like halfway through last time or something like that, but I think my feelings are the same. I think it's an excellent book. It's such an interesting framing structure that both makes us question our perception of true crime and serial killers and Jack the Ripper and how we have perceived history for a long time, because we'll say like have this focus on history from, say, Jack the Ripper is our interest, and then these women become side narratives when really their lives are as important and can actually tell us so much more about wider social conditions of the time they were living in. So I think it makes us question history and historical narratives, which from a historian's point of view is fascinating, but it also is just such an interesting commercial non-fiction book on basically what it's like to be a working class woman in Victorian London, exploring like alcoholism, medical conditions, women's right to work, marriage laws, etc, etc in that time period. And I feel like I have a much more nuanced, detailed understanding of that time period and those women's lives through this examination of individuals, and I thought that was great, and I thought it was very accessible, so I would really, really recommend it. Thanks to Lauren and Lauren for that recommendation. And then lastly, I ended up reading Lanny by Max Porter, which is Max Porter's second novel. These are very much experimental novels, both of his works, so they're written in quite a lyrical style. Like, they don't always take the form of traditional prose. For example, look at this. There's a purpose to this though. It's like a demonstration of the way you can use text to kind of carry a feeling on the page for the reader. Obviously that wouldn't necessarily work in audiobook format, but it's very interesting visually and from like a text reader's perspective. So I really enjoyed that, and I think, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Thanks to Lauren and Jen for this recommendation. It was their videos that this one was in as the best book, but I'm so pleased I read this because I had been meaning to read it for ages. I loved Grief is a Thing with Feathers. It's a book I think about often that's really stayed with me and that I recommend to a lot of people. And partly because I loved that book so much, I was a little bit nervous to pick up the second book, Lanny, because I felt like that book was so unique and experimental. It seemed strange to me to conceive that he could do something as good as that again, but this book manages to perfectly continue his unique writing style and create a really interesting, beautiful literary piece of literature like Grief is a Thing with Feathers did, but manages to be in many ways very, very different and unique in its own stead. It is about this little village, and we have 4 perspectives. We have Dead Papa Toothwort, which is the most surreal character. He's the one that you sometimes see those text insertions for, who is this like character of folktale to do with this specific village who has a kind of like physical manifestation through feeding off his stories that are told about him. And then we have Pete, Mad Pete, who is this local artist, and Lanny's mum and Lanny's dad, as they're referred to. Lanny is a young boy who is obviously the son of Lanny's mum and Lanny's dad. He spends a lot of time with Pete. He like goes around to his art house to do art with him, so they have a close relationship. And the weird sort of presence of dead Papa Toothwort also has a fascination with Lanny. He finds his mind and the things he says particularly interesting compared to all the other stuff he overhears and experiences in his sort of weird periphery existence. And in that way it's quite similar to Grief is a Thing with Feathers, which also has this kind of like observant creature type presence looking over the whole narrative, but it's also really different, and it's just very stylized, very unique, but very beautifully written. And I don't know really what else to say about it, because obviously I don't want to give away spoilers, and it's only about 200 pages long, but I think this one very much lived up to the hype, and I cannot wait to see what Max Porter does next. I definitely won't be putting off his next novel for as long as I did this one, but I think this very much just proved the theme of this video, which is to trust people's top books of 2019 videos. I have started listening to The Missing of Claire de Lune on audiobook, for those of you who are interested, even though I won't be reviewing it in this video, and I'm enjoying it so far, but I'm not very far into it, so I think it'll be a little while before I finish it. Whereas I have not started Signe Pike's book, but really am looking forward to reading it. I just want to be in the perfect mood for that kind of immersive historical fantasy, and this kind of like past week or two just wasn't it. So I'm looking forward to reading that sort of probably in the coming month or so, and I hope otherwise you have enjoyed this video, found my opinions on these books interesting. I'd love to know if there's any books that you've added to your TBR since watching other Booktubers best books of the year videos. What are you excited to read? Have you already picked any of them up? And until next time, happy reading. I'll see you again soon. Bye guys!